if everyone's ready, I can definitely start with today's presentation. So let me do that. I guess you can see my screen. You can see me. So hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Actually, it's my second Magnetico event. I guess with the Timișoara audience. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this properly, but I'm equally excited because, again, I think we all share the same belief in this room as HR colleagues. And it's actually the belief that people are an organization's competitive advantage, right? I guess if I couldn't understand Romanian, but again, since I joined the corporate world, my mission has been to make leaders understand that people are the business and that there's no business without people. So hopefully something in these lines was the introduction that they made about me. Initially, I started executing this mission from the internal communication side of the business. And as I started transitioning into the HR side, I actually realized that we do share the same mission, right? So, because we do share the same mission, I think we definitely have to join forces because all our actions, both in communications or people departments, they have a direct impact in what we call employer branding and in the overall employee experience as well, right? I always say it's not a matter of running a 100-meter race here. We have to join forces because the race is going to be long, right? Employer branding, I always say it's like running a marathon because brands actually, they require constant cultivation in order to be perceived as genuinely positive, right? And that sounds very fancy. So let me put this in very simple words. I'm sure nobody here fell in love during the first date with the partners because they came into the date with a nice PowerPoint containing a list of all the cool benefits that they were going to get by dating them, right? If someone did find their soulmates like these, I want to see a copy of that PowerPoint, please. I will share my email later, just in case. But think about it, it was probably more of a process of building trust throughout weeks, throughout months, even years of being there, of listening to each other, supporting each other throughout the ups, throughout the downs, right? So whether you're sitting in marketing, social media, PR, HR, it is time to start managing and actively influencing what people are thinking and what they're talking about you. Because all our actions will shape the conversation that our past, our future, our present employees will have about us when they go and have a beer after work with their friends, right? So why am I saying manage and influence instead of owning or dictating? It's simple. It's because I think that your employer brand is not something that you actually own. Your reputation actually as an employer is going to exist in the minds of the candidates and in the minds of the employees anyway, whether you try to do something about it or you decide to not do anything about it, right? So let's start thinking about creative ways of positively influencing it. And before that, I want to play a quick game here of raising hands to warm up a little bit. It's going to be fast, I promise, but I want to put like some scenarios that I think some of us might have gone through quite a few of those, right? So let's imagine that you are applying to a job, right? And you go probably visit the company's website, you visit their career page to learn a little bit more about this before the application or even before the first interview, right? Then you start reading, you fall in love with the culture, you fall in love with the values that they have on the website, you fall in love with their LinkedIn post, and then out of a sudden you get the job, right? And once inside the company, the situation looks a little bit more like this one. So how many of you have gone through a similar situation? I'm going to raise my hand here. And I hope I'm not the only one because I guess I have heard from many colleagues that they have gone through something similar in the past or even in the present, right? Let's do another one very quickly, right? So let me see. If I'm, yeah, here. How many of you have been micromanaged in a company where trust was one of the core values of the company? And here I'm going to raise both hands because that happened to me more than once, right? But hey, they host pizza parties on Thursdays, so we cannot complain much about it, right? And let me finish with a more positive one where the expectations actually are meeting the reality this time. That's why I had to draw quickly the orange. And you can see drawing is not my strongest skill, but don't judge me for this. How many of you still catch up from time to time with some colleagues from previous companies where you worked at? I do catch up with many mentors from the past, many peers, even some of the managers I had, right? And maybe that even led you to return to work for a previous employer that you used to work in the past, maybe a few years later. That happened to me. I went back to HP as a full-time contract a couple of years after my internship with them. And I had the best time of my life in Singapore. You can check that out yourselves from the picture, right? So what I wanted to do with this quick game is to show you that all these situations are real, and they show how employer branding is everywhere. You know, all of us had experiences that shaped our thoughts around the brand, around the company. I'm even talking to you today and sharing some of the best experiences I had back at HP when I'm not even working for HP anymore, right? And while your employer brand might attract the potential employees, is actually your strong employee value proposition, the EVP, and the overall employee experience, what's going to make them realize why they want to work there, right? But sometimes, let's be honest with each other, you would agree with me that EVP turns into companies selling all these rah-rah, all these beautiful things to the candidates and the employees around why they are so amazing and all the cool things that they do on sustainability, on diversity, right? But with everyone doing this nowadays, your organization stands little chance of having any impact and truly standing out, right? New generations now, they want facts. They don't want to see 4 values painted on the walls when they go to the office, right? So the solution, let's stop being a company trying to create a one-size-fits-all EVP that ends up actually appealing to no one. I was in Paris less than a month ago at an event that it's called Unleash. And the conversation was the following, right? Let's change the E, let's put an I, and then you get individual value proposition with the whole purpose behind of really personalizing all your interactions with the candidates and with the employees. And why? Because what a CFO wants to hear is probably way different than maybe what a marketing specialist gets up for work in the morning, right? At Unleash, I remember there was even a session from a lady, she was called Claude Silver. The session was around how to make organizations more human. And she was discussing the importance of switching into the organization, adapting to the people they hire, instead of the people having to adapt to the organization. Now, you know, think about it. Many years ago, that was probably impossible to think about, right? Look at this example from Zalando. I found it a couple of weeks ago when I was working on the presentation, and I thought it's the perfect example of personalizing your actions and targeting specific groups and needs, right? In this case here, you can see there's an employee feeling heard and feeling supported by the company by being offered a room with a few toys for the person to be able to work while they keep their child entertained, right? That day, she couldn't put their child into childcare, and therefore she was able to go still into the office and use that room in order to keep the child with her, right? So I think it's a great and simple way of supporting the different needs of your employees, in this case, of your working parents, right? So as you can see, EVP is present across the entire employee lifecycle model, right? And I see this model many times with 5 stages, 6, 7, 11 stages even. But for the sake of time today and for the sake of everyone's mental health, I will try to keep it short. But I just want to use this to give you some practical examples on how companies are thinking broadly around the employee experience across all the different stages, right? So let's take a closer look at the attraction phase, right? All big companies where I've had the pleasure to work for, they hire hundreds, even thousands of trainees and interns at a global level each year. This means communication team, together with talent, even in partnership with universities, they have to develop some branding materials to attract the best trainees in the market, right, into the organization. And during this process, what I have noticed is that we normally tend to focus so much on the what, on the messaging, that we forget on the how, right? Question for you, just to really think through a little bit. Have you ever tried to involve younger people in the process of creating these campaigns or creating these ways of approaching the newer generations, right? Because, you know, if you are more, let's say, than 30 years old, which I am myself, let's be realistic, we are not that young anymore. So we need to spend time getting to know our audience, thinking about where are they now? Where do they spend their time, right? Let me try to put this video without the sound. Hopefully, it's not needed. I have seen many companies right now being brave enough to try new things, to be present in places or in platforms where they had never been before, right? Companies are heading now into Twitch or into YouTube to organize virtual job fairs or networking events, right? Another strategy that I have seen a lot to connect with your audience are, for example, branded podcasts as well. Companies like Sephora, eBay, many others, they created branded podcasts to share informational content that really provides value, and therefore it helps them build an authentic relationship of trust with their audience. And the example that I like the most actually is the one from Zendium here. You can see the 2 minutes of Zen. Zendium is a natural toothpaste brand. And what they did is instead of going through the typical 30, 45-minute podcast, they created a 2-minute short guided podcast instead that you can listen to while you're brushing your teeth with activities that range from meditation to wall sits, right? So how cool is that? You don't have to always follow what everyone is doing, but adjust to your own needs, right? And your own branding. Let me move into the next stage here. Recruitment. When it comes to recruitment, I think, it's important for all of us to think about how are we writing our job offerings, right? Or how simple or how hard it is to apply to the job. Check your company perks as well that you offer. See if they're up to the industry standards. And even outside of the industry standards, because in this war for talent, we are not competing with our industry anymore only, right? A few months ago, I was checking some of these job offerings that LinkedIn is sending to your inbox on a weekly basis. And in less than 30 minutes, I came up with 2 examples that I shared with my friends over dinner, and we were laughing so much about. And I can tell you why in a second, right? So what if I told you, you need to be white to apply for this job? I guess, did it sound a little bit weird to you? I guess so. Then why are there companies asking for native English speakers only? I think it's so discriminatory because there's literally nothing you can do to achieve this, right? Like you could work your ass off and still English will never be your first language. Let's take a look at another example here. Flexible schedule, the ability to work remotely once a week. Really? In which century are you living in? That didn't sound very flexible to me. But hey, parking discount, considering this offer was located in Barcelona city center, I really don't want to imagine how much personal time and personal money these employees are wasting in getting into the office, right? So let's be careful when we write these job offerings. The point here is we need to start training our talent teams immediately. Isn't it true that we focus on our sales teams because they sell our product? Then our talent teams, they are the ones, selling our values, selling our brand. So let's train them on how to write inclusive job offerings, on the importance of being transparent, on how to follow up in an empathetic way during the hiring process, etc., etc. And let's do quality checks to understand if these learnings are being applied. I just captured that like in 30 minutes, like one day that I was checking the job postings, right? But you can do that with your own postings as well from your own companies. Onboarding, when we're going into the onboarding stage, something that really triggered my attention here was some research from Harvard Business School that they were sharing that 1 out of 3 recent hires will look for a new job within their first 6 months at a company. Think about it. 1 out of 3 will look for new jobs in the first 6 months. It can be productivity challenges. It could be cultural issues, etc. Right? But if you mix that with a lack of a well-designed onboarding, it can really have serious impact on the business, even like in terms of money-wise, But let's think about onboarding like more in a positive way, as an opportunity here, right? When a new hire is joining a company, think about it. It's the first time they get to experience your employer brand, firsthand. So in the same way that you use employer brand to attract the talent outside, let's use the same messaging to engage talent internally, right? 2 interesting things around onboarding, practical things. I like to bring practical examples, from what I've experienced or even worked on myself in the past are, number 1, example here from HP. Don't only think about onboarding, right? Think even about those days between the person signing the contract and day 1. These pre-boarding days, they are already such a good time to start engaging with your new employees, right? Remember when we were saying people are a company's greatest asset? Then let's leverage them. Let's leverage our existing employees. Let's turn them into ambassadors like they do at HP here. And they can pre-record video clips and other interactive content. They can share important information and welcome everyone aboard in these pre-boarding days, right? Another example, another opportunity as I see this, right, is encouraging self-onboarding. At Bunge, and let's see, I can still play this without sounds, otherwise it's going to get difficult to hear me. But at Bunge, we take a push and pull approach. We still have this element of push to ensure that our new joiners are getting everything that they need in the form of global onboarding calls, local inductions, right? But on the other hand, employees immediately get access to a library of information to educate or pull themselves, right? So thanks to technology nowadays, think about it. It's so easy to create like these customized onboarding journeys that they can actually put the new hire at the driver's seat of their development, right? And so by pre-recording content, you can actually train your individuals through their first days in all the areas that are important to them and to the business as well at their own pace, right? So I think that's also something important to think about, how to leverage technology. Let's go into step 4, geez, retention. What can we say about retention when all we keep hearing lately are concepts like the great resignation or quiet quitting, right? But what's driving all of this? So I'm a huge fan of Brené Brown. Maybe I hope some of you have heard about her before. And I was recently trying to find some answers to this, by listening to one of her podcasts. And they were talking about toxic cultures being the main reason why people leave a company, right? And my next thought obviously was like, okay, sure, that makes quite a lot of sense, toxic cultures, but how can we actually define what a toxic culture is, right? Then I jumped into this article called Why Every Leader Needs to Worry About Toxic Culture. The link is there on the slides. And basically, it's a study that they did where they analyzed 1.3 million Glassdoor reviews from US employees of Culture 500 companies. And they identified 5 main toxic attributes that were actually the main cause of a negative review. Those attributes are the ones you can see on the screen: disrespectful, non-inclusive, unethical, cutthroat, and abusive. And let me explain you a little bit more of the graphic so you can understand a little bit, right? So each bar here represents the marginal impact a negative mention of a topic had on an employee's rating of the organization's culture. So for example, if an employee says they feel disrespected in the review, their culture rating was 0.66 lower on a 5-point scale on average, all else being equal. So quite a big impact, I would say. To show you how much, sorry, I shouldn't have moved yet. So probably you are thinking right now, okay, what can we do about this, right? If you ask me, one of the key elements here is leadership. How many of you have resigned because of a bad manager? I did in my previous job, right? I keep constantly hearing friends saying that they want to quit or that they quit in the past because of having a terrible manager. So we need to provide our leaders with the right tools and the behavioral training so that these toxic attributes are not showing up in our companies, right? And then we need to closely monitor that their progress is real. And we actually need to promote those people who really have the behaviors and the skills that are needed to be successful in a people manager role. And then now it's time for me to move to show you how much I do believe in what I'm actually preaching today. Let me share what we kicked off at Bunge recently, together with our industrial leadership operations team. And let me put this without the sound, or maybe just a little bit. I'm not sure if that should be enough. Together with our Europe and Asia industrial operations leadership team, we started a leadership development journey that we call Industrial Revolution, right? The aim is to transform and to evolve the leadership style in our industrial side of the business in order to create a better environment that will hopefully help us not only to retain, but also to attract new talents into our facilities, right? Let me bring the sound a little bit down. Otherwise, I keep hearing as well, and I'm getting crazy. And what's interesting about it as well is how instead of using ROI, let me put this on the screen for you to see here. Instead of using ROI as a way to measure success, here we do the opposite than we did a few slides ago. And we change the I into an E, and then we measure the return on expectations. How? Through assessments at the beginning and at the end of the journey. 180 assessments, where we collect not only the expectations from the people that are going through this journey, so the leaders, but we also collect the expectations from the people that are around them in the plants to really understand if they are noticing a real behavioral change in their leaders after several months of learnings and coachings, right? So I just wanted to bring you this example to really show you that I'm not only preaching, but we are doing similar things as well, because we do believe in the power of our leaders to change these toxic cultures as well. So let's move into development. I love this topic because opportunities for development is something that everyone is looking for in a company, right? No matter if you want to grow towards the people manager or the individual contributor path. And there are companies that truly understood the assignment. Obviously, Google is one of them. Not only do they have a reputation as the most, successful search engine, which will attract talent in general, naturally. But they are known also for supporting their employees with creative benefit packages. And let's forget about the great offices or the free food that is amazing. But what truly makes a difference here is the strong commitment to development and self-actualization that they have. And the thing here is that this is not something that they just preach. They actually allow their employees to dedicate 20% of their time to other pursuits or projects that they have in mind. Companies then like 3M or HP, they have followed a similar approach. And I can tell you by experience, because I was an intern in the innovation department when I first started with them, that innovation was boosted after we implemented something like this, right? Hundreds of new patterns have come out at HP after allowing employees to spend some time developing their own ideas. And in the end, it's going to be beneficial for the company. So here comes the last but not the least stage. As an HR professional, I hear a lot about the importance of employer branding in the attraction phase, about creating the right candidate experience, about how to increase employee engagement and retention. And I can see HR leaders constantly spending their budget, purchasing the best HR systems and the best tools to provide an amazing experience, right? So that the employees feel satisfied and feel happy about their choice of employer, right? However, ladies and gentlemen, when the desire from employee and employer to separate from each other is expressed, it looks like all the glitter and all the glamour disappears, you know, like it's boom, cultural aspects and all the corporate values are out of a sudden neglected. And then you start seeing people or some leaders, many colleagues taking this separation, I would say even quite personal sometimes, no? Like I hear people saying, the person decided against us and they went for something else, right? When somebody decides to leave or is dismissed, I see, and probably you do see that as well, because I think that's quite common, that suddenly all the bridges, all the doors are closed and information is no longer shared with them. Those that are leaving are no longer invited to projects or to bring new ideas to the meetings, right? And that's not good, you know. From an employer branding perspective, it is particularly important that the greatest possible fairness and empathy is experienced in the separation process, because the way in which companies separate from their employees is actually also shaping the culture and the image of our companies. Think about it, it's our last chance to make things right, you know? So making it feel cold and unempathetic, it's not gonna help. It will really leave a bad taste in the mouth of the employees. And remember that these employees are going to become long life ambassadors, even when not working for your company anymore, right? So how can we start doing right away to flip this chart and to keep the trust and the empathy levels high until the end of the journey? One thing, very specific example, could be the creation of an alumni. I'm not sure if you do have one, but if you still don't have one, try creating an alumni community. There's so much more to explore in this area still, besides just creating a LinkedIn community, right? This can help you share company news, job offerings, invite people for talks or other activities at your offices. And who knows, you know, you might even rehire some of the talent again in the future. You might even use this talent to, again, come to your offices, talk about a specific topic, train your people, right? What you can see on the screen is basically one of my colleagues from Singapore. He recently, like 2 days ago or 3 days ago, he posted this, like a special event that they did for ex-HP and what they call Y still in HP colleagues in Singapore. And they were having drinks together, they were having dinner together, they were sharing experiences and so on and so forth, right? Another thing you can do in general terms, try going beyond the legal paperwork, right? Some companies have already built a termination package containing useful information like when is your last paycheck going to take place, or everything you need to know about your health insurance, or they even offer employment or career services through external providers to those who need it, right? So as a summary, because I am seeing the clock ticking here, I just highlighted a few of the many opportunities that we have across the employee life cycle to positively influence what people think and talk about us, right? And my recommendation to you is get creative, as there are tons of ways that can lead you to a happily ever after relationship, even when your employees don't work for you anymore, right? So talking about the separation stage being, you know, the last chance for people to keep a nice memory, here's a cute video of my dog on my last slide. That's the most creative thing I could get for today, but I hope this will help people make talk good things about my presentation today and make them happy a little bit. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to stay connected with you all through LinkedIn and have, more extended conversations with you. I wish you like a great day and that you continue to enjoy this beautiful event. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Patricia. Întrebări? One question from my connector. Have you ever measured the return rate of ex-employees and the reason behind that?
You mean the return of expectations? Is that the question? Is that the one? I can go back
I think
to
it's
that.
the first one. Have you ever measured the return rate of ex-employees and the reason behind that?
Oh, of ex-employees. I got
Yes,
you.
ex-employees.
I didn't have the chance. Yeah, I didn't have the chance because I'm not the one who's driving these initiatives here at Bunge. But I know that at HP, it's a strong thing. And from my experience being there, I went back to them. I know like many people who went back to them. And if you still don't go back, you are still connected in a way and you still talk positively about them, right? So I can tell you from my own experience as a professional at HP, I saw many people coming back, really many people, many mentors that I spoke to, people around me, they were coming back. I cannot tell you like a specific number because I was not running that part of the business back then and I'm not running it right now, but I can definitely check, right? If that's something interesting. But from my experience, I can definitely tell you a lot of people were coming back.
One more question. Do you think all internal communication should be adapted to different groups of employees? Do you see any risk there?
I don't see any risk. I see this as a positive thing, and actually that reminds me of something that happened to me recently. We were having like a graduation ceremony with our early talents, like the new generations, right? And somebody got asked the question of, what do you think will make you a great leader, to one of the young graduates, right? And the person was saying, personalizing my interactions with my team members, because each of them will have different needs, right? So this is actually what I keep hearing a lot and what we have been seeing all over, right? Like, again, what a CFO might need is different from what a marketing specialist might want to hear. Or for instance, when we talk about working from home, working from the office, there's no right or wrong, I would say, right? It's just a matter of what works for the person. So again, I understand, I come from internal comms, that there are some communications that we cannot personalize that much because we are going company-wide, right? So the more official communications, I would say we need to keep the same tone, or in the town halls, or when we share broader information. But I do see there's like a really, really good opportunity to start hearing the needs of the smaller groups and to start personalizing and addressing these needs, because otherwise people feel like they are being treated like a big number, right? Another person more in the company. And when you start targeting these communications or these actions, they feel that actually they feel heard and they feel like, okay, my feedback is really taken into consideration, right? So I definitely see more opportunities than risks, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Patricia.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.